Hello everyone, and welcome back to Jikook Moments. Have you ever been unsettled by a moment that appeared only briefly? Not because it was dramatic, but because it was too honest? In Are You Sure? There was one short conversation between Jimin and Jungkook. Quiet, still, almost free of heightened emotion. And yet, that was precisely where its weight lived. One sentence about wanting to share time together. One admission about going through a difficult period. And then, the moment vanished. Not partially edited, not shortened, but removed entirely. Today, we're going to talk about the moment that was never aired, yet somehow left the deepest impression. And why that silence ended up speaking louder than anything the cameras ever showed. There is one moment in Are You Sure? That appears almost without warning, and because of that, becomes one of the most unsettling and unforgettable parts of the entire series. A brief clip first shown in the teaser for episodes 3 and 4. It seemed simple, nearly insignificant, yet powerful enough to create the sense that something meaningful was about to be revealed. It wasn't loud or flashy. There was no exaggerated laughter, no casual banter. What existed instead was calm, silence heavy with meaning. Jimin and Jungkook sat together, talking without rush, and from the very beginning it was clear this wasn't empty conversation. There was a seriousness rarely allowed on camera. When Jimin said, "Honestly, I really want to drink here with you," it didn't sound like a casual suggestion. It sounded intentional. And when Jungkook replied, "And I'm going through a hard time, you know? So I lean on you," the emotional weight of that exchange became impossible to ignore. That wasn't a reflexive response. It wasn't filler. It wasn't something said without thought. It was an admission of hardship, of vulnerability, of needing support, delivered with a quiet honesty that only made it stronger. After the teaser was released, many people waited for the full conversation. Not out of simple curiosity, but because that brief clip promised context, depth, and an unfiltered glimpse into a complicated period of their lives. It felt like the teaser opened a space to pause, to speak without masks, to say things usually kept off camera. But when the full episode finally aired, the conversation was gone. The setting was the same. The timing felt right. But the emotional core had completely disappeared. The topic was never revisited. There was no continuation, no echo, not even a vague reference. The thread was simply cut. And when something like that disappears, it doesn't mean it never happened. It means it was removed. That's where the discomfort begins. Because what was removed wasn't an ordinary scene. It was a moment that was clearly fragile and meaningful. Decisions like that are rarely casual. There is consideration. There is intention. And from there, the inevitable question arises. Why? If the conversation was too personal, too sensitive, or too honest, then why include it in the trailer at all? That clip wasn't random. It was carefully edited, subtitled, and positioned as promotional material. A decision was made to show it, and later, another decision was made to erase it. That contradiction is what keeps the unease alive. This isn't about chasing drama or forcing hidden meanings. It's about acknowledging the real weight of words that were genuinely spoken. Talking about hardship and leaning on someone, especially in the context of military service, is not trivial. It's human, it's honest, and it's deep. Perhaps that's exactly why the moment felt too much. Because the most real things are often the hardest to control within a tightly curated format. Even though the conversation never aired again, it didn't disappear. It lives on, in the memories of those who saw it, in the unanswered questions, in the lingering feeling that something important was deliberately kept. And as we watch Are You Sure? In full, that unease only grows. Throughout the program, there are many cuts, more than we might notice at first glance. Especially when Jimin and Jungkook are together, very close, very quiet, as if sharing something beyond words, only for the scene to suddenly jump elsewhere. Those transitions aren't always smooth. Sometimes they feel abrupt, even awkward, like a conversation interrupted before it can finish. And this isn't a one-time occurrence. The pattern repeats across multiple episodes. Intimacy, then redirection. Even in behind-the-scenes footage, where things are supposed to feel most natural, the cuts remain. Certain moments are never allowed to fully land. Something is always left hanging. This isn't entirely new. The first season had similar patterns. But this time it feels clearer, more intense. And because of that, the teaser conversation stands out even more. Because this isn't speculation. It isn't interpretation. We heard their voices. We heard their words. And it's clear that this was no ordinary exchange. There was genuine emotional weight. Both of them opened up from a place of honesty and vulnerability. They spoke about enduring, about leaning on someone, about the importance of not facing difficult times alone. The way Jungkook admitted he was struggling was gentle, not dramatic, not exaggerated. He said it like someone who trusted the person beside him. And there was equal meaning in how Jimin expressed his wish to share that moment. Quiet, sincere, without needing explanation. The words were simple. And precisely because of that, they carried so much weight. Of course, many will say it was just a normal conversation between two people who are very close. And that's true. No labels are needed to acknowledge that kind of closeness. But the question remains, and refuses to leave. If it was so normal, why erase it entirely? That's where the silence begins to speak louder than words. Because removing that conversation didn't diminish it. It didn't lessen its meaning. If anything, it made it stronger. Absence doesn't extinguish meaning. It amplifies it. And there is something almost romantic, yet incredibly subtle, about all of this. Not a loud romance, but one that lives in small confessions, quiet trust, and the willingness to be a place of support. That kind of connection doesn't need grand declarations. Sometimes, one sentence spoken at the right moment is more than enough. Maybe that's why the conversation was ultimately removed. Because it was too honest. Too difficult to contain once seen. Because when emotional support that deep surfaces, it can't be reduced into something light. In the end, what happened to that conversation didn't erase it. It didn't invalidate it. It turned it into one of the most meaningful moments, precisely because it was chosen to be protected. Because not everything is meant to be shown in full. But one thing remains clear, between Jimin and Jungkook, there is a deep bond, built over time, strengthened through hardship, and guarded by a silence that requires no proof. And that certainty, even if glimpsed only briefly, is impossible to ignore. Because sometimes, the strongest things aren't what we see completely, but what appears for just a moment, and stays in the heart for a very long time. In the end, maybe that conversation was never meant to be fully seen. Because some bonds don't need long explanations, don't need full footage, don't need defense. They're simply felt in one honest sentence, in one gentle confession, and in the choice to keep it safe. Thank you for watching Jikook Moments.